What's goody, what's good? It's the one and only Jelly Nicole, and if you don't know, now you know. I'm a fashion designer, seamstress, serial entrepreneur, and crafter, and I love sharing tips and tricks about all of that. You've seen the title of the video. Today we're going to be discussing the quickest and cheapest way to learn how to sew like a pro. And by cheapest, I mean completely free, except for one tip. So let's stop talking about that. Let's get right into it. Tip number one is YouTube. YouTube. Using YouTube has been the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. YouTube is good for having really long and extensive videos. If you're wanting to sit down and actually binge watch, YouTube is definitely the way to go. You can find a lot of things on YouTube. You can find how to sew and what to sew, and you can find how to sew it. YouTube is definitely going to be one of the best resources to start learning how to sew or learning how to do anything. If you don't resonate with one video, maybe you can find another video that has the same topic, but it resonates with you a little bit more because of who that person is or what that person is saying. Definitely use YouTube to your advantage because me, myself, I am definitely a graduate of YouTube University. I've just learned everything on there, and now I'm sharing it with you all. Number two is Pinterest. Pinterest is really good for like really quick tips or specific things and just learn how to do something with just a quick glance. They have lots of videos and they have lots of variety when it comes to learning how to sew. So if you see something on YouTube and you're like, I really want to dive into that a little bit more, but I don't want to watch a really long video about it, definitely check out YouTube Shorts, but also go on Pinterest and type in that same thing because you might just find something that sits with you a little bit better or that was just easier to catch on to because it was just so quick and easy. Pinterest is cool. Tip number three would be looking inside your clothing or any garments that you own and seeing how things are sewn together. That was the easiest way for me to learn how to sew, and that was probably the reason why I wanted to learn how to sew. You start going into the store and you start looking at things and you're like, I can do this. I can sew this. I'm not buying that. I can sew this. I definitely take a look inside of your garments and see how things are put together. Try to stick to simple things like t-shirts, leggings, sweats, things like that, instead of looking for like blazers or anything with linings in them because that's just going to kind of confuse you a little bit more. Take a look at some of your garments on the inside and just see how simple it is so that way you can start putting some puzzle pieces together. Number four would be altering your clothing or other people's clothing. If you're just learning, probably stick to your clothing unless there's somebody that's willing to let you borrow some of their clothes to kind of like experiment with. Altering your clothing could be many things. You can shorten a dress, replace a button, stitch up a hole. Things like that can actually guide you into learning how to sew, and then you can start putting pieces together to actually build your technique and learn how to sew. Also, altering your clothing or other people's clothing can help you get familiar with different types of fabrics and how they work, as well as kind of get you familiar with working with your machine for those different type of fabrics. So look into altering your own clothing because that can also help. Number five would be taking your clothing apart and taking notes on how you take it apart. That way you can put it back together. You will have to work backwards and you'll have to write down what you did first, and what you took apart first would be the last thing you sewed. If you take apart a t-shirt, you're going to be taking apart the hem first, and then you would do the side seams and so on and so forth. Taking apart your clothing can also help you because obviously you're going to see how it's put together. You can also put those pieces back together so that you can kind of learn how things are constructed. Number six would be to check out sewing blogs. Look around and see what kind of sewing blogs are out there. You have sewing blogs for quilting, crafting, sewing couture, and you also have sewing blogs for actually sewing clothing. Definitely look them up. You can Google them, you can go on Facebook groups. Sewing blogs are very resourceful because some of them include free sewing patterns or a glossary so that you can get familiar with what words go with what, so that when you're explaining something to somebody or something is being explained to you, you're able to know what you're talking about and you can kind of build your sewing knowledge off of that. Take a look at sewing blogs and kind of get familiar with the terminology and the vocabulary that we use in the sewing industry. That way you're not looking like too brand new to this. Number seven is using easy step-by-step patterns. You can find patterns in many different places. This tip is going to be the one that's probably not going to be free, besides you finding free sewing patterns in the sewing blogs, or if you find free sewing patterns in general, this one's not going to cost you. But if you are wanting to purchase something that you see on Etsy or Simplicity or McCall or Vogue, you're going to have to pay for it, obviously, but it's so well worth it because it teaches you a lot, and it teaches you how to sew a complete garment step by step, and you can remember that and use that. And every pattern that you purchase with Simplicity, McCall's, and Vogue, they usually include a glossary with a lot of information and a lot of words so that you understand what you're sewing and what that means. Sewing patterns also just helps you get familiar with the way things fit and what you have to measure when you're learning to sew. Tip number 8 would be checking out any free community sewing classes. I host free sewing classes here in Aurora, Colorado. You can always look on Facebook groups or in sewing blogs that have resources to free community sewing classes or affordable community sewing classes. That way you're not spending too much on a class that you just honestly, it didn't teach you anything. My free sewing class includes a lot. It gives you great terminology, great basics to learning how to sew, what tools you need to sew with, what machines you should start with. Check out your free community classes or affordable community classes because they have lots of them out there. You just have to find them. Research, research, research. That's the number one thing when you're learning something new, especially sewing. Take advantage of those resources. My final tip would be, honestly, this one was pretty shocking to me, but check out your local library. I'm not talking about just for sewing books. A lot of libraries are starting to open up a craft or art corner or art center. It's different for every state or for every library, but here in Colorado, downtown Denver, we had a awesome library that has a sewing center, and it has free sewing machines that you can use there. It gives out free resources like rulers and cutting supplies that you can use while you're there, and just kind of get the feel of how a seamstress or tailor actually works, what materials and what machines they work with. That way you can see, is this for you, or is this something that you would love to do or invest in? Definitely check out the local library. And also, you may have somebody in there who knows what they're doing and they're just there to use the resources but know how to sew. You can ask them questions if they have time or if they're so kind to give you any advice, and you can go from there. But use all of those tips that I gave you. These were most of the things that I did when I was learning how to sew. You can comment down below if you know of any other resources that people can use to help them along their sewing journey as well, how long you've been on your sewing journey. And let's talk about fashion. Until next time, see you then.